So, good morning, everyone. We have another exciting days with many companies presenting today. My name is Christer Linde, Head of Research for ABGSC, and today we have Midsona and Peter Östberg, that is CEO of the company. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Very happy to see so many people in the audience in this early morning hour. I would like to take you out on the journey of Midsona, where we come from and where we're going. And investing in Midsona is about investing in healthy and sustainable foods, i.e. foods that are good for the people, but also for the planet. That means typically organic food, natural foods, a lot of plant-based foods, i.e. vegetarian products and vegan products. And being an investor of Midsona is also being on a growth journey. As you can see, Midsona has been growing tremendously for a number of years here, very strong growth. It's a mix of organic growth for our key brands, but also a lot of M&A-driven growth. And we have continued to acquire this year, so I would say that the pro forma turnover of the company is about 3.5 billion nowadays. So we're continuing to grow. So we'll take you on this journey, where we come from and where we're going. And it all starts with our prioritized brands within health and well-being. And most living Swedes in the audience, I assume that you know quite a few of those brands. And hopefully, and probably, you're also consumers of some of the brands that we have in the portfolio. These are now 2018 figures, so they have changed a little bit since we have done some acquisitions. But in 2018, about 50% of our turnover was from organic products. It's close to 60% today. About 25% was health food products and plant-based foods. That's down to about 20 now, since this part has been growing. And the rest is self-care products, i.e. dietary supplements. And as I said, we have a number of iconic, strong brands in the portfolio. I hope and think you know many of them. Urtekram, a leading organic brand in Denmark and Finland. Kung Markatta, a leading organic brand in Sweden. Davert is our organic brand in Germany. And Friggs, you probably know, in corn cakes, rice cakes, conventional healthy foods. And then a number of other strong consumer brands within healthy foods. I would like to take some time to explain the growth journey that we have been out on and the driving forces behind that growth journey. And it all started in the Nordics around 2011, 2012. At that point in time, we were a 100% Nordic company. What we saw, and a lot smaller company also, I should say. What we saw at that point in time was some very interesting things. The market for health and well-being products was extremely fragmented. It was mainly made up of small and medium-sized family companies. There were few strong companies, few strong brands. A lot of the products were sold in the health food stores, and you did not find so much of it out in the mass market, the grocery trade, the big retailers. And we saw a growing interest in health and well-being among the population in the Nordic countries. So we saw a business or an industry that was ripe for consolidation. And that was our journey for a number of years, to grow our presence in this region by building our own brands, but also via M&A activity. So we bought a lot of small and medium-sized family companies. We integrated the companies in the Midsona portfolio and become stronger step by step. This was our growth journey until about 2017. And in that point in time, we had a leading position in the Nordic countries. There weren't that many obvious acquisition targets anymore, so we decided to focus on the brands that we already had in the portfolio. And we started to look at the rest of Europe instead. And what we observed then was both interesting and motivating, because pretty much the same scenario that we saw in the Nordic 2011, we saw out in Europe 2017, 2018. i.e., a very fragmented industry. We made a major analysis and we found 1,000 small and medium-sized family companies in the rest of Europe, so a very fragmented business. A lot of the sales still in the specialty stores, and a growing interest for health and well-being. And the fact that a lot of the sales are in specialty stores means that a lot of consumers are not being exposed to the product. So moving it out to the grocery trade typically will help consumption of the product, i.e. more consumers will have access to the product. So we started a new journey, i.e. the same type of consolidation journey that we made in the Nordics, we are now doing out in Europe. We made one major acquisition in Germany 2018, and we have quite recently made an acquisition of a company called Alimentation Santé in France and Spain. So this is now our new journey to do what we did in the Nordics, also out in Europe, and thereby continue to drive growth. The industry, health and well-being, is quite a hot industry, and an industry with some strong underlying trends. People are becoming more and more aware of what we eat to stay healthy. They exercise, and that in itself drives the interest for healthy food. And you can see here the growth for plant-based products, i.e. vegetarian and vegan products, compared to conventional products. So it's 2% growth for all food and 20% for plant-based foods. The growth of organic products, i.e. ekologiska produkter in Swedish, is an average of 9% per year across the globe. And also a growing interest in sport nutrition products, i.e. products that you consume when you do sports. So we are in markets that are really, really growing. Our way to capture this growth and grow the company goes by our 4 strategies, with a vision to become one of the leaders in Europe in foods within health and well-being. The first strategy is to drive our brands, the brands that I showed earlier on in the presentation. The second strategy is to be very active on the acquisition front. As I said, we have found 1,000 companies out in Europe. We won't acquire all of them, of course, but there for sure is room for consolidation in this market. So we'll continue to acquire quite aggressively. As we are growing, it's becoming more and more important that we have a cost-efficient value chain. And we have done quite a lot of work in terms of streamlining cost as we have been growing the company. And last but not least, very important that we are both healthy and sustainable as a company. And this is something that is increasingly demanded by both consumers and customers. What is it then that puts Midsona apart from other companies in this industry? I think that there are 3 factors that are clear competitive edges for us. One is that we have full command of the value chain, from the growers. These are actually all these people here. They are employees out in the fields, actually. I mean, with the growers. We have our own production, predominantly in organic foods. So we are very strong when it comes to production of organic foods, and we have 6 different production sites across Europe, doing everything from vegetarian dry products to spreads to plant-based meat alternatives, which is a trend that is very hot right now, baby food and beauty care products. And we are mainly doing our own brands, but we're also doing private label for the big retail chains in Europe and food service products for hotel restaurants and so on. The second key competitive edge in the company is the fact that we have a strong knowledge of brands and how to build market-leading brands. We are quite proud to say that we have the market-leading organic dry brands in all the 4 Nordic markets. Kung Markatta is the leader in Sweden, Urtekram in Denmark and Finland, and the brand Helios in Norway. And we have the ambition to create similar positions for our brands out in Europe and markets like Germany. The third competitive edge is our ability to acquire good companies and also to integrate them into the Midsona franchise. And this indeed is a long, long list of companies, and I will not go through all of them. But I would like to point out a number of important points here. Number 1 is that we do 2 different types of acquisitions. We do what we call platform acquisition. That is when we establish a new base in a new market or in a new segment. Those companies are typically a little bit more expensive, but we also buy more quality. We buy usually a lot of production capacity, brands, and customer connections. What we then do is that once we have established a platform, we do what we call add-on acquisitions. That are acquisitions that are smaller, maybe just a small product line, but we can then integrate them into our system and get quite some good synergies out of that. And we can also acquire those smaller companies at prices that are typically a lot lower compared to the platform acquisitions. And this is a long list of the acquisitions that we have made. They range from typically 4 to 7 times EBITDA for add-on acquisitions to 10 to 12 for platform acquisitions. And after synergies, we have been able to get the multiples down. Importantly also is that we have increased our acquisition pace in the last year. So we've done 3 major acquisitions this year. So this is also a signal that we're stepping up the pace in terms of consolidating the European market now. I talked about this earlier. This is the analysis we made of the European market for health and well-being, the Western European market, I should say. And as you see here, we found not 1,000 companies, but 998 companies. I'm quite confident that it will not look like that in the future. This is a market that will consolidate, and we want to be one of the consolidators by buying up a lot of good companies within this business to become one of the leading ones in Europe. Our latest acquisition is one that we're quite happy about for a number of reasons. We bought the company Alimentation Santé, and we own it as of 1st of October this year, so this is brand new. This is for us a double platform in the sense that it's a platform in Southern Europe, Alimentation Santé has businesses both in France and in Spain. But it's also a platform in the sense that we are established now in a new, very promising category, i.e. plant-based meat alternatives. As you know, or probably know, people are more and more shying away from eating meat for health reasons, but also for the good of the planet. And then you need other protein sources instead. And Alimentation Santé has production and a brand in plant-based meat alternatives. So they produce products like vegetarian burgers, nuggets, but also the major protein sources for vegetarians like tofu, seitan, and tempeh. So this is an acquisition that we are very happy about indeed, and an acquisition that is very strategic for us. We have this year put new financial targets, or announced new financial targets. And we are actually increasing our growth ambition. Before it was 10%, and we're now at 15%. So our ambition is to grow the company by at least 15% every single year. That should be done via a mix of organic growth for our brands. We typically say that we should grow our own brands by about 5% per year, or at least 5%. And then we should add 10% of acquisition-driven growth to get to 15% per year. We target an EBITDA margin of 12%. In the last quarter, we were just above 10%. And the way to get there is to grow our brands faster, to do acquisition, and then integrate them successfully. And we also have a number of efficiency programs and cost savings programs running at the current moment that should take us from the current 10% to about 12%, or over 12%. We say that we should have a gearing of 3 to 4 times when it comes to net debt versus EBITDA. And this is also a signal that we want to be active on the acquisition front. We want to be part of this consolidation that we see coming in Europe. And we should, of course, continue to give dividends to the shareholders. I think I can go on for a few more minutes here. A few words on our recent results. Summary of Q3. The prioritized brands, i.e. the 8 brands that I presented earlier, grew by 12% in total. That is something that we are very happy about. We think that that is very strong growth for our key brands. Total, excluding Alpro, we lost a contract, a distribution contract, but excluding that, we grew by 5%. EBITDA was 77 million, just above 10%. And in the third quarter, we did 3 acquisitions. Alimentation Santé that I talked about, but also an add-on acquisition in Germany, a company doing organic spreads, Ice Cream at no cost, and a small acquisition of vegetarian frozen products in Sweden, Eco Gourmet. So net sales, 4.6%, excluding Alpro, plus. EBITDA, 77 million plus 13.2%. An EBITDA margin just above 10%. So we're doing good progress towards our objectives. And this is pretty much a summary of this, how we have been doing. But I think I go to the last page, which is the summary page. We are on a growth track. We have the ambition to consolidate the European market for health and well-being. We have recently completed the acquisition of Alimentation Santé, meaning that we now have a strong platform also in Southern Europe, and importantly, a strong platform in plant-based meat alternatives. There are some good underlying trends that helps us. People are becoming more interested in this industry. People want to eat healthier, and that drives the growth of both the company and the industry in itself. The European market will look different in the future. It will not be as fragmented. We will be there and be one of the big consolidators of this market, and that is what should really propel our growth. We continue a solid financial performance, had a good third quarter. So we are on a growth track. We're happy about the progress that we're making, and very excited about the future journey for Midsona. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Åsberg, to correct my...
That's okay.
Yes. So maybe we should start with top-down question here. You have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that organic food sales in Sweden and Denmark is around 10 to 14% of all sales. If you go to the rest of the Europe, many countries is below 5%. So first question to you is that why is the gap so huge? And number two, what is your view on that? Will it gradually close?
That's a very good question. As you say, Denmark has the highest per cap consumption of organic products in the world. It's about, I think it's 13 to 14% by now, and Sweden is above 10%. In my mind, one of the main reasons for this is that organic products were mainly sold in the specialty stores before. Then it was moved out in the grocery trade, i.e. the ICAs, the Konsums, the Coops, the Axfoods, and so on. And that made the product available to a lot more people. People took interest in that and started to consume more organic products. And that is what has driven the growth in the Nordic arena. And this is what is so exciting about what we see now in Europe. We see a gradual transformation from mainly specialty stores to the grocery trade out in Europe. And we think that that will propel growth in many European countries. For example, to compare, in France and Germany, per cap consumption of organic products is about 5 to 6% compared to the 10 plus that we see here in Denmark and Sweden. In Spain, it's only 2%. Will they close the gaps? It's hard to tell, but I'm sure that the growth will be a lot faster in those countries in the future, and that they will gradually come closer to the Swedish and Danish levels. And that is one of the main triggers why we're out now trying to get a grasp of the European market for organic foods.
And a follow-up question that, as you said, you have started to look for acquisitions outside the Nordics. You have done a few. When it comes to price tags, elaborate a bit on that.
Yep.
Nordics versus rest of the Europe, you have said many targets. Is it so that it's similar opportunities, or is the price tag too high in some countries?
I would say it's pretty much the same, I would say, overall. I talked about our platform acquisitions, i.e. the bigger acquisitions. They're usually at 10 to 12 times EBITDA, while the smaller add-on acquisitions are 4 to 7 times EBITDA. Where you see some very high price tags are when it comes to plant-based meat alternatives. And I'm sure that you've heard about the Incredible Burger or Beyond Meat in the US, which are traded at very, very high multiples of prices. I don't even know if they make a profit today. So in that sense, we're very happy about the acquisition of Alimentation Santé, because there we also acquired a company doing plant-based meat alternatives at what we think was a pretty decent price tag.
And maybe the final question then, as you said, you have done 3 acquisitions in a short period of time. Now you're close to your target when it comes to gearing. Will that lead to that you will have a bit of slow period over the next 6 to 12 months before you can ramp up and continue acquisitions plans?
We are continuously working on acquisitions, and we do so also now. When the next acquisition will come, I don't know, and I can't tell, but we're working on it, and financing itself should not be an issue. The thing is that we are having a very good cash flow conversion in the company. So that means that our gearing is coming down quite rapidly when we stop acquiring. So there should be room and ammunition for more acquisition also in the next year.
I think that was all for me. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.